Welcome to another episode of Inside American Politics by Skoob. I'm your host, Bradley Teller, and today we're diving deep into one of the most consequential stories of our time: how a handful of tech billionaires have quietly orchestrated what might be the most sophisticated takeover of American political power in history. This isn't just about money changing hands. This is about algorithms deciding elections, shadow presidencies, and the transformation of Silicon Valley from a bastion of progressive innovation into something far more sinister. So buckle up, because what you're about to hear will fundamentally change how you view both technology and democracy in America. Let me paint you a picture. It's a crisp evening in Silicon Valley, sometime in the mid-2000s. The setting? A private dining room in a four-star hotel. Around the table sit some of the most powerful people in technology: founders, venture capitalists, researchers from secretive tech labs, and a couple of professors thrown in for intellectual credibility. The host, and we're talking about one of the most prominent names in tech, poses what seems like a thought experiment. What if a new state were created to maximize science and tech progress powered by commercial models? What would that look like? Utopia? Dystopia? Ultimately human evolution propellant? Now here's where it gets chilling. A researcher from one of these secretive labs jumps in immediately. Not a hypothetical question, he says. We have already spec'd this out. Think about that for a moment. While most of us were worried about our next mortgage payment or getting the kids to school, these people were literally designing their own nation-state. But wait, it gets worse. This researcher continues. Your first thought is that we should find an island and build there, but it turns out to be difficult to optimize for scientific discovery on islands. You have to find a plot of land elsewhere, and all the desirable plots of land are already occupied. So the first problem you confront is, what do you do about the natives? We decided that the best approach is to just pay them to leave. Pay them to leave. The natives. This is how these people think about the rest of us, as obstacles to be removed from their grand optimization project. But here's the kicker. When someone at this dinner dared to ask about democracy, that pesky little thing our entire system of government is based on, the response was swift and telling. Democracy? Number. To optimize for science, we need a benevolent technocrat in charge. Democracy is too slow, and it holds science back. This wasn't some fringe group of libertarian fantasists meeting in a basement. This was Silicon Valley's elite, and they weren't just dreaming. They were planning. Now, to understand how we got from that dinner to where we are today, we need to rewind to a different era. Cast your mind back to the Obama years. Silicon Valley was the shining jewel of American innovation. Tech companies were the darlings of the Democratic Party. Barack Obama himself was practically a tech evangelist, hosting Google executives at the White House and celebrating the democratizing power of social media. Back then, it made perfect sense. The tech industry was praised, regulatory scrutiny was minimal, and these companies could pretty much do whatever they wanted. The marriage between progressive politics and Silicon Valley seemed natural. Both supposedly championed equality, innovation, and breaking down old barriers. But something fundamental shifted in the late 2000s and early 2000s. Suddenly, these tech titans found themselves facing uncomfortable questions: antitrust investigations, privacy regulations, tax scrutiny. The very government they had once courted was now asking them to play by the same rules as everyone else, and that made them very, very angry. See, what most people don't understand is that tech billionaires aren't driven by ideology, they're driven by optimization. When the Democratic Party stopped being optimal for their interests, they simply recalibrated. Enter Donald Trump, a man who had previously called them enemies of the people, sued their companies, and tried to ban their platforms. But suddenly, Trump represented something valuable: a path back to the deregulated paradise they craved. This wasn't about political conviction. This was about cold, hard calculation. The same mindset that optimizes algorithms for engagement was now being applied to optimize political systems for profit. The transformation was stunning to watch. Mark Zuckerberg, who had been persona non grata in conservative circles, suddenly found himself dining at Mar-a-Lago. Jeff Bezos, owner of the famously liberal Washington Post, killed the paper's endorsement of Kamala Harris before the election even happened. Elon Musk went from Tesla's eco-warrior CEO to Trump's most vocal supporter. But here's what's truly terrifying. This wasn't just a political realignment. This was the moment Silicon Valley decided that democracy itself was the problem. Let me tell you about the most sophisticated manipulation campaign in human history. And the scary part? It was legal, mostly invisible, and presented as a public service. In 2010, Facebook launched what appeared to be a straightforward voter engagement campaign. 61 million users saw a simple message encouraging them to vote, along with photos of 6 friends who had clicked an "I voted" button. Seems innocent enough, right? Wrong. This was actually a massive social experiment that proved something terrifying. A single algorithm could decide American elections. Here's what Facebook discovered. When they showed users that their friends had voted, turnout increased dramatically. The researchers calculated that their little experiment had generated an additional 340,000 voters. To put that in perspective, George W. Bush won the presidency in 2000 by 537 votes in Florida. Think about what that means. Facebook, a private company accountable to no one but its shareholders, had the power to swing not just congressional races, but presidential elections. And they were just getting started. 2 years later, they took it further. During the Obama-Romney election, Facebook altered the newsfeed algorithm for 2 million politically engaged users. These users started seeing more hard news in their feeds, less cat videos, more political content shared by their friends. The result? Self-reported voter participation in this group jumped from 64 to 67%. As one Facebook researcher put it, when your friends deliver the newspaper, interesting things happen. But here's the crucial difference between Facebook and traditional media. When the New York Times puts a story on the front page, everyone knows it's an editorial decision. It's transparent. It's debatable. Facebook operates like the Wizard of Oz. We see the curtain, but never the man behind it. When you scroll through your feed, you think you're seeing what your friends are sharing. You don't realize that an algorithm, designed by people with their own political and financial interests, is deciding what you see, when you see it, and how you see it. This is manipulation at a scale that would make totalitarian regimes jealous. And it's perfectly legal because it's hidden in plain sight. Now let's talk about the crown jewel of tech political influence, Elon Musk's transformation into what critics are calling America's shadow president. After spending an estimated $200 million to get Trump elected, Musk didn't just buy himself a seat at the table, he bought himself a co-presidency. People in Trump's inner circle have literally dubbed him the first buddy and co-president. He sits in on calls with world leaders, shapes policy across multiple agencies, and heads a new Department of Government Efficiency that gives him unprecedented power to reshape the federal government. But here's what makes Musk different from traditional political donors. It's not just the money, it's the reach. Musk owns X, the platform formerly known as Twitter, with his personal account commanding over 200 million followers. Leading up to the election, this became a 24/7 megaphone for Trump talking points. But it went deeper than that. Musk literally reprogrammed the platform's algorithm to elevate pro-Trump content and election conspiracy theories. He turned one of the world's largest social media platforms into a political weapon. And the conflicts of interest are staggering. SpaceX is competing for billions in Space Force contracts while Musk shapes space policy. Tesla faces federal safety scrutiny, while Musk influences transportation regulations. His Starlink satellite network is crucial to Ukraine's war effort while he sits in on foreign policy calls. When Vice President-elect J.D. Vance threatened that America might leave NATO if Europe regulates Musk's platforms too heavily, we crossed a line. Foreign policy was now being shaped by the business interests of a single billionaire. This isn't political influence. This is a hostile takeover of American democracy disguised as campaign support. Mark Zuckerberg's political transformation might be the most cynical of all. Just a few years ago, Trump was calling Facebook an enemy of the people. The Trump administration sued Meta and investigated the company for illegal data harvesting. Zuckerberg was toxic in conservative circles. Fast forward to today, and Zuckerberg is dining at Mar-a-Lago, offering to advise Trump on AI policy and positioning himself as a crucial ally. What changed? Simple calculation. Under the Biden administration, Meta faced serious regulatory pressure. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau was investigating the company for illegally harvesting users' financial data to target ads. Antitrust cases were moving forward. Privacy regulations were tightening. So Zuckerberg did what any optimization-minded CEO would do. He optimized for the new political reality. $1 million donation to Trump's inauguration later, and suddenly those pesky investigations started disappearing. In fact, Trump has essentially shut down the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau entirely. Good for Zuckerberg's bottom line, terrible for consumer protection. But here's the most telling moment. At a recent dinner with tech CEOs, Zuckerberg was caught on a hot mic essentially trying to be teacher's pet, boasting about Meta's investments and trying to curry favor with Trump. This is the same Mark Zuckerberg who once positioned Facebook as a platform for global democracy and connection. Now he's just another billionaire buying political protection. Let's talk about one of the most brazen examples of corporate influence buying in recent memory, Trump's 2025 inauguration. Picture this. Every major tech company, Meta, Google, Microsoft, OpenAI, each writing million-dollar checks to fund Trump's inauguration party. And why not? There are virtually no rules governing inauguration funds. No limits on donations, no restrictions on who can give, no requirements for how the money is spent. It's legalized bribery disguised as party planning. At the resulting dinner, we witnessed one of the most cringe-worthy displays of corporate sycophancy in American political history. CEO after CEO thanking Trump, praising his pro-business, pro-innovation leadership, with Zuckerberg embarrassingly trying to outdo his peers in flattery. "This is definitely a high IQ group," Trump declared, as these supposed champions of innovation fawned over him like courtiers in a medieval palace. The hypocrisy is breathtaking. These are the same companies that Trump had previously sued, investigated, and called enemies of America. But a few $1 million in donations later, and suddenly they're leading a revolution in business and genius. The message is clear. In America today, everything is for sale, including presidential favor. To understand how we got here, we need to go back to the beginning. In 1996, John Perry Barlow penned his famous Declaration of the Independence of Cyberspace. It was a manifesto for a new world, one where governments had no power and technology would be the great equalizer. "We are creating a world that all may enter without privilege or prejudice accorded by race, economic power, military force, or station of birth," Barlow wrote. It was a beautiful vision that inspired a generation of technologists, including young activists like Aaron Swartz. The internet was going to democratize everything: information, opportunity, power itself. Compare that utopian vision to where we are today. In 1996, the 5 most valuable companies in the world were General Electric, Royal Dutch Shell, Coca-Cola, Nippon Telegraph, and ExxonMobil, a diverse mix of industries and nations. By 2020, the top 5 were Microsoft, Amazon, Apple, Alphabet, and Facebook, all American tech companies that now control unprecedented amounts of data, influence, and power. The great equalizer became the great concentrator. Instead of democratizing power, technology centralized it in the hands of a few Silicon Valley oligarchs. The hackers who dreamed of cyber independence ended up creating digital fiefdoms where a handful of tech barons wield more influence than elected governments. So let's address the elephant in the room. Has America become a tech oligarchy? The uncomfortable truth is that America has been an oligarchy for quite some time. What we're witnessing isn't the creation of oligarchy, it's a changing of the guard. Traditional power brokers are being displaced by a new class of tech billionaires who don't just have money, but control the information infrastructure of our society. Think about it. When was the last time you got news without it being filtered through a tech platform? When did you last communicate with friends without using a tech company's service? When did you shop, work, or even think without tech companies monitoring and influencing your behavior? These aren't just wealthy individuals. They're the masters of the systems that shape our reality. And now they're using that power to reshape our political system to serve their interests. The difference between old oligarchs and new ones is the scope of control. Standard Oil controlled energy. Tech oligarchs control information, communication, commerce, and increasingly, government itself. We're not headed toward oligarchy. We're already there. The question is whether we'll recognize it in time to do something about it. As we close today's deep dive into Silicon Valley's grip on American democracy, remember that dinner we talked about at the start. Powerful tech leaders casually discussing how to bend politics, bypass voters, and buy influence. Because that wasn't a metaphor, that was a warning. What we're seeing isn't normal political lobbying. It's the slow replacement of democracy with a system run by algorithms, money, and efficiency metrics. Elections nudged by code, public opinion shaped by platforms. Power concentrated so quietly that million-dollar political donations barely cause a ripple anymore. The real question isn't whether tech oligarchs have gone too far. It's whether we'll act before their control becomes irreversible. Every delay, every update, every backroom deal tightens the grip. And here's what we haven't fully explored yet: the hidden networks, the private meetings, and the decisions happening far from public view. To uncover the full story, download the Skoob app now and listen to the complete episode. Because understanding how power really works is the first step to challenging it. Until next time, keep questioning, because democracy doesn't survive on autopilot.